Task 1, Personal Facts, assesses the individual's memory and language abilities. The clinician will ask the client a series of questions. The individual will answer without using any reminders such as calendars or address books. The clinician may ask the question a second time if 10 seconds passes without a response or if the examinee requests a repeat. Each correct response is given 1 point, and each incorrect response is given 0 points for a max total of 8 points. When were you born?
February 23rd, 1994.
Okay. Where were you born?
New Britain, Connecticut.
What is your age now?
22.
Task 2, Symbol Cancellation, assesses visual attention and perception. The clinician will present pages 1 and 2 in the answer manual to the client. Page 1 contains an example that the clinician will use to show the client how to perform the task. The client will be given 2 minutes to cross out every example of the target symbol on page 2 of the response booklet. For this task, a symbol cancellation scoring transparency is provided to determine correctly and incorrectly canceled symbols. Correctly canceled symbols for pages 1 and 2 are totaled for a max score of 12. Okay. Look at this symbol. This symbol appears several times on this page. Can you point to one for me? Great. I'm going to cross out this symbol on this page. Now I want you to cross out every example of this symbol on this page. You'll be giving 2 minutes. Do you have any questions?
No.
Go ahead and start. Task 3, Confrontation Naming, assesses word retrieval difficulties. The clinician will explain to the individual that they are going to name some pictures. The clinician will instruct the client to give single word responses when responding. The examiner's manual notes the clinician to make note of any delayed or immediate perseveration, although the scoring for this particular task does not take perseverations into account. Making note of any perseveration may be indicative of the inability to limit information. For this task, 1 point is given for correct responses. Half a point is given for responses that contain at least half the phonemes or the amount of syllables in the correct response. No credit is given for responses with less than half of the phonemes or syllables correct. Now I want you to name some pictures. What is this?
A cow.
What is this?
A chair.
Task 4, Clock Drawing, assesses all cognitive domains. The clinician will present page 3 of the response booklet to the individual and instruct them to first place all the numbers inside the circle as they would appear on a clock. The clinician will then instruct the individual to set the hands at 10 minutes after 11. This task has 11 separate criteria for scoring the clock drawing. Each criteria has a max of 1 point awarded for correct responses, and 0 points are awarded for incorrect responses based on the criteria given. I want you to draw a clock on this page. First, put all the numbers inside the circle as they would appear on the clock, then set the hands to 10 minutes after 11. Be careful, be neat, and go ahead and start now. Is that all?
Yes.
Are you finished?
I am finished.
Task 5, Story Retell, helps assess auditory memory and comprehension, working memory, and language output skills. The clinician will read the short story on page 7 of the record form and ask the individual to retell the story back. Auditory comprehension will follow the story retell. The clinician will ask the client a series of questions about the short story, and the client will provide yes/no answers to the questions. For the story retell portion of this task, the record form provides a list of target words and phrases. A check mark is placed next to the target word or phrase the individual will use in their story retell. Each check mark is given 1 point for a max of 18 points. The record form provides a chart to determine subscore auditory comprehension. A correct response to 2 questions earns 1 point for a max of 3 points. I'm going to tell you a short story. Listen carefully. I want you to repeat the whole story back to me exactly as I tell you. I can only read it once. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay, here it is. Anna's husband gave her a beautiful ruby ring for her birthday. That night, she decided to wear the ring, but she couldn't find it. Anna searched everywhere and then began to cry. She reached into her pocket for her handkerchief, and there was the ring. Now tell me the same story. Go ahead and start now.
Oh boy. Anna's husband gave her a ruby ring. I can't. I really can't. I don't remember.
Okay. Anything else about the story? What else happened?
I know that she cried, and she cried when she found it. And it was a birthday present, maybe? Just I'm not very good at memory skills.
Good. That was good. Now I'm going to ask you some questions about the story. Just answer yes or no. Was the woman's name Alice?
No.
Did her husband give her a ruby ring for her birthday?
Yes.
Did she accidentally throw her present away?
Yes.
Was the woman's name Anna?
No.
Did her husband give her a diamond ring for her birthday?
No.
Did she find her present in her pocket?
Yes.
Task 6, Simple Trials, assesses planning, self-monitoring, working memory, and visual attention. The clinician will instruct the individual to connect a series of shapes in a specific order. The individual will perform the task without help from the examiner and will be given 3 minutes before moving on to the next task. For this task, a Simple Trials transparency is given to place over page 10 of the response booklet. Each correct or self-corrected line receives 1 point for a max of 10 points. Look at these circles. They are different sizes. I will connect them by drawing a line between them. I will start with the smallest circle and draw a line to the next biggest circle. Now I will draw a line to the biggest circle. That's what I want you to do on this page.
Okay.
Which is the smallest circle?
This one.
All right, now draw a line from that circle to the next biggest circle, and then keep going. Good. Generative naming task, task 7, assesses the individual's word search and retrieval abilities based on a subordinate semantic category. The clinician will first instruct the client to name as many different animals as they can in 1 minute. The examiner will record responses on page 11 of the record form. Following the 2 minutes allotted for the naming of animals, a second generative naming task will be presented. The clinician will ask the client to name as many words that begin with the letter M. The individual will be given 1 minute to complete this portion of the task. For this task, a max score of 9 is allowed. After both parts of the task have been completed, the total number of correct responses will be totaled. The record form gives a range of correct responses that is directly correlated with the score that should be given. I want you to name as many different animals as you can in 1 minute. What animals can you think of?
Lion, tiger, bear, pig.
Task 8, Design Memory, is designed to assess visual discrimination and analysis, attention, and visual memory. The clinician will present page 14 of the stimulus manual to the individual once. After 20 seconds, the clinician will turn the page to 15 of the stimulus manual and ask the client to identify all the designs they saw on the previous page. The task will be done 3 times with 3 separate stimuli. For this task, there is a max score of 6. Each correct response is worth 1 point. Look at these designs carefully. I want you to remember what they look like. Try to remember them because I can only show them to you once. Point to the designs I just showed you. Good. Task 9, Mazes, assesses the client's planning, mental flexibility, self-monitoring, and visual discrimination. Clinician will instruct the individual to make their way through the maze by staying in the alleys and not moving through the walls. The individual will be given 60 seconds to complete Maze 1 and 2 minutes to complete Maze 2. For this task, there is a max score of 4. 1 point should be subtracted each time the examinee's line travels at least half an inch up an incorrect path and is self-corrected. Use the pen to trace a path through the maze to get to the money. Stay in the alleys and don't go through the walls. You have 60 seconds to complete the maze. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Begin at the arrow and go ahead and start. Task 10, Design Generation, assesses creativity and mental flexibility. The clinician will provide 2 examples to the individual. Following the second example, the clinician will direct the client to make as many different designs as possible using 4 lines in each design. Each line should begin and end at a dot. The individual will have 3 minutes to complete the task. There's a max score of 13 for this task. Scoring is based on a total number of designs, subtracting designs that were copied from the demonstration, perseveration designs, and designs containing more or less than 4 lines. Here are 4 dots. I'm going to connect the dots using 4 lines to make a design. I used 4 lines to connect the 4 dots. I will make another design. I made a different design using 4 lines. I want you to make as many different designs as possible, but don't copy my designs. Use 4 straight lines. Make sure each line begins and ends at a dot. You have 3 minutes. Remember to use 4 lines in each design. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, go ahead and start. Scores for each task will be transferred to the summary scoring worksheet and multiplied by the number specified across the row. Each column will be totaled to a given score for each cognitive domain. The clinician will then find the range of severity that corresponds with the examinee's score for each domain. A composite severity rating will be given when all 5 scores for each domain are totaled and divided by 5. A separate severity rating will be given for the clock drawing.